Let's talk money. Touchy subject, right? People don't like to talk about it, but if we're in business, to be honest, even if we're not in business, money makes the world go round, and it's something that we can't neglect. I'll give you my top 5 books around money. I'll come to that in a few minutes. First, I want to share a bit of my story, a bit of how I've come to where I am now, some of the breakthroughs I've had, some of the beliefs that I've shifted. And I'll preface this that this is very much something I'm still working on. The reason I want to make this video now is because I've actually just been doing some work on it literally like this morning and over the past few weeks. So it's very relevant now. I believe that money has an energy. Money is currency. Currency, like electricity, right? It moves. It's an exchange. It moves between people, and it has to be understood and treated as such. That means that it's not a one-time thing. It's something that's going to keep coming up because you have a relationship with it. You have a relationship towards it. In the same way that a person, a family member, a friend, whatever, you have a relationship, and that relationship is dynamic. It changes, it evolves. As you change, as you evolve, new things come up which maybe were always there but weren't on the surface. And that's why I think your relationship towards money, your beliefs, your values to a point, it's something that needs to be consistently gone back to and addressed if you want to keep growing and moving forwards. I'll give you background. So I grew up in a place called Scunthorpe, which is a very working class, dead end, going nowhere kind of town. It's the kind of place where it's not so bad now, but in the past, something ridiculous like 70% of the town's population worked at the steelworks, which was the industry in the town. 70% of the population work on this one steelworks. Manual labour. My dad worked there, my granddad worked there. That's how it is, generation after generation worked there. And I remember when I was finishing school and I was thinking, what do I want to do? Do I want to go to university? Do I want to go learn a trade? I didn't have my shit figured out. I was only 16 and a little bit directionless and lost. My dad was like, do whatever you want to do. I support anything that you want to do. But my advice to you is to go and get a job at the steelworks. Because it's safe, it's secure, you've got a job for life, you can progress through the ranks exactly as he had done. That wasn't for me. I didn't know what I wanted, but I did know what I didn't want, and that was to be stuck in this dead-end town with these same people doing the same things day after day. So I didn't go down that path. But that's where I came from. It's the kind of place where nobody has enough. Everyone has a very small mindset. Everyone has a very scarce mindset. You will hear a lot of money doesn't grow on trees, a lot of saying that people who are well off or wealthy are in some way bad, or they don't deserve it, or they're cheating somebody or taking something from those who have less. A kind of willing misunderstanding or refusal to even try and understand basic economics. Like, why do footballers get paid so much, for example? Because they generate more money for their club than they get given. If you're Lionel Messi and you get given $1 million a week, it's because in TV deals and ticket sales and shirt sales and everything else, your club is making more than $1 million a week off having you play for them. They don't understand things like that. It's just like, well, I'll never make $1 million in my lifetime, let alone in a week. So that's kind of where I've come from. And when I was 20, I moved myself down to London, started my first business, which was a personal training business in the financial district. So I was surrounded by bankers, hedge funds, corporate lawyers, very high-end money finance industry. And I started working on my relationship with money probably a year or so into being in London consciously. Because I became aware that it was a thing, that the mindset and the way that you relate to these things impacts how you show up in the world and the behaviours that you exhibit. The first foray into working on it, I guess, and understanding it more, and this is going to be the first of my 5 book recommendations. I think the first one was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad is obviously a classic. Most people have probably heard of it. You may have even read it. It's a really good entry-level book, although it's quite old. It's not only still relevant, I think it's actually more relevant now. It talks, the main 2 lessons really is the difference between assets and liabilities. So spending money on things that pay you, like passive income, buying rental properties, for example, versus things which depreciate in value and cost you money, like a car or, expendable things, holidays, whatever. And understanding that because of inflation, because the government continues to print money, or the central bank, so we don't need to get into that, but because money continues to be printed, the value of money goes down. So you can see, a dollar or a pound in 1900 was worth this much, had this much buying power, and now a pound or a dollar has like 10 cents or 10 pence worth the buying power of what a dollar had in like 1900. So the value of money is going down. So every single year that you're holding cash, the money is becoming less valuable. Or another way to look at it is you need to be consistently making more money to live the same standard of lifestyle. Things get more expensive. It's especially prescient now because post-COVID, they went crazy printing money, inflation spiked way up. I believe that inflation is a lot higher than the official statistics. I think they hide it. The consensus needs to be it's more like 12-13%, not the 4% that they report. And it's very obvious, especially in the UK. There's the cost of living crisis. Everything's gone bananas in price. Groceries, petrol, housing, everything's spiked up in price. So inflation's gone crazy. So if you earn a salary, or if you earn the same amount of money as you earned 2 or 3 years ago, you're way worse off. So that's the understanding from Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a great book. I think everyone should go through it to get kind of the basics of the relationship between money and the world at large, the economy, the governments, and how money kind of makes the world go around. The next book, and this was the first one that's a little bit more personal, it's more about you and your beliefs, was Millionaire Mindset by T. Harv Eker. That's a lot more of a digging into your beliefs, digging into your patterns and understanding how your relationship with money is. And it's quite a entry level, quite a simple one to get into, I think. I remember sitting at my kitchen table and doing the exercises for a couple of nights after work, and I found it really enlightening. It taught me a lot about the way that I unconsciously think. You like psychologically, you will either do one of 2 things. You will pick up the belief patterns that you learn as a child and then replicate them, so you'll do exactly the same thing as your parents did, or you'll polarize against them and do the exact opposite of what they did. I did the exact opposite. Money was, we were okay. We never struggled to eat or anything. And my parents, especially my dad, sacrificed a lot to give us financial stability. And I was a lot better off than a lot of my friends, especially people who came from from divorced parents, single parents. A lot of people lived in council houses. They really didn't have any disposable income at all. We were always okay. We had enough money, but it was always scarce. Like, it wasn't given out generously. I wasn't allowed much pocket money. I remember the football boots when I was like 10, 11, that everyone wanted. 1998 World Cup, Michael Owen, Zidane, Ronaldo. Everyone wants the Adidas or the Nikes because they're the cool boots. They're like 100, 120 quid. But my dad would only get me the Umbros that were like £40 because that's all we could afford. I think we actually could afford the more expensive ones, but patterns on patterns of scarce living, saving up, diligently tracking everything that's spent and writing it in a little notebook every time somebody spends 10 pence. It was an attitude of scarcity. So I very much went the opposite way. As I never want to live like that. And for a long time, I didn't want to track or budget. And it wasn't in a good way, it was in an unconscious way. So there'll be times where I was actually scared to look at my bank account. Because I knew I was pretty much broke. Like I was struggling, I was 20, 21, just started a business, just moved to London. I didn't really have a clue what I'm doing. Not just in terms of in the business, but I don't have a clue, like living on my own for the first time, paying bills, rent, food, everything. And I would exhibit patterns, when I did have money, it's like, let's go buy some expensive clothes, and then I've got no money for the rest of the month until I get paid again. So my pattern was kind of do the polar opposite of how I'd grown up. This book helped me uncover some of that and kind of come to understand that, along with a lot of other reading about, the psychology of just the basic understanding that this is applicable to anything, not just money. You understand that you will either replicate the pattern or do the opposite and rebel against the pattern. That I'm a rebel, I tend to rebel against the pattern. That understanding itself is very, very valuable. Moving on, the next book that I want to recommend, this one I read a few years ago, and it's a much deeper understanding of how money works, where money came from, like the history of money, how it became the medium of exchange. I'll not get into it now, you can read the book if you're interested. But I think when you're dealing with something, when it's such a fundamental part of your life, it really serves you to understand how it works and why it works the way that it does. So the book is The Bitcoin Standard. The first half of the book is not about Bitcoin, it's about money and the history of money and why money is the way money is. And that is to set up for the second half of how Bitcoin is the new money. Whether you believe that or not, obviously the history is a fact, the future prediction is a hypothesis. So you can choose to believe or not believe in Bitcoin, that's not really relevant. I think it's a really, really good book to read, even if you only read the first half, just to see how do we get to here where we are now. Doesn't matter where we're going in the future. So that gives a really strong understanding of what money is. And when you understand that, I think it helps to diffuse a lot of the emotional energy around money. Because money is this thing, like I said at the start of the video, people don't like to talk about it. Yet it's the most fundamental human creation in life. The most fundamental natural creation in life is oxygen, right? Followed by water, food, love, Maslow's hierarchy. But the most fundamental human creation is money, because money buys food, money buys shelter. Money does everything. Money makes the world go round. If you don't have money, you don't have anything. Yet we're so, especially in the UK, so uptight and scared to address it and talk about it. And I think when you have a real understanding of what money is, it's just a medium of exchange, then it's a lot easier to negate some of that emotional charge and have a little bit more of a rational understanding, which I think is quite empowering. Moving into the fourth book, this one is the only one that's really actually a business book. The book's called Profit First. I went through this after we'd started making a reasonable amount of money. I think we'd been doing about 100k a month for probably 6 months or so. And we'd probably been spending at least 80k a month in expenses. And, not really making a lot of money, having a lot of high revenue, but not having a lot to show for it. And when I read this book, it's called Profit First, it really helped me understand how to actually organize a business's finances. I think when you come from the world of being a solo practitioner, like I started off as a personal trainer, most people start off in some realm like that, just doing coaching, consulting, it's just them, they're a one-man band. There's no understanding of like the business expenses, like what's gross profit, what's net profit, what's EBITDA, what's put aside for taxes. None of this is really thought about. It's just looked at as revenue. How much revenue have I made? And the way people think is more revenue equals better. Even if costs go up, and that's a trap that we fell into for a long time, for at least 6 months of like actually making good money. So plus forever prior to actually making good money, also approached it that way. So I just want to earn more money. I want more revenue, and really unpacking the concept of paying yourself first, and the concept of your business serving you. Like, 'cause that's why we get into business. We don't get into business to have this thing which adds lots of responsibility and stress to our lives for no reason. We do it for what it pays us. We want to have a business that serves our lifestyle. And as an entrepreneur, you take huge risks. You take on huge stress. You know, it's the old saying that entrepreneurs will work in a way that other people won't, so they can live in a way that other people can't. That involves working in the way that other people won't, right? There's a ton of sacrifice there before you really get the payoff and the reward. And if you're not actually prioritizing getting paid, prioritizing profit and paying yourself, what's it all for? And it sounds stupid, but this is how people operate. Trust me, it's not just me. This is how most people operate. This is how the majority of our clients operate. It's how the majority of the people that we were peers with in the mentorships that we were in were operating. It's how people are. Because I think when you're coming from a place of scarcity, you only look at top line. It's I need to make more, make more, make more. More is just the answer. When you don't have enough, more is the answer. There's a big mindset shift between when you don't have enough and the only thing you can see is I need more, to, well, now there is enough. There's enough flowing around. I'm just not taking it. It's just flowing around and being thrown away. So I think that's a really important one, especially as you start to make a bit more money. But I'd strongly recommend to put these understanding principles in place before you start making a lot of money, because then before you become the person, you need to start acting like the person. So if you want to be a millionaire, start acting how a millionaire acts, because that's what will get you to be a millionaire. Going into the final book, and this is the one that I've been working on literally now. Like I said, I've not got this stuff all figured out. The latest one's called The Energy of Money, and it's pretty much a real deep dive workbook on really unpacking your beliefs and really unpacking the emotional charges that you have around money. It's pure personal development. It's not how to make more money. It's working on the energetic side of it. But it's a really, really good book, and it's uncovered a lot of stuff for me. And I can see a lot of the mistakes that I've made over the years, even when I've been conscious of this, even when I've done all the prior work on it that I've spoken about. And I've read other books and done other stuff as well. These are just the best, in my opinion. I've been working on this stuff for over 10 years, but I've still got all this stuff. And I'll tell you some of the things that I've noticed in myself, because maybe you'll be similar. First of all, the saying that you become the sum of the 5 people closest to you is very true. I see patterns in my behavior towards money. I already mentioned it from my upbringing and how I used to be very scarce because that's where I came from. And then I see it through patterns I've learned from my business partner. I see it through patterns I've learned from my wife. I see it through patterns I've learned from the coaches and the mentors and the people that I've learned from and respected. And a lot of my patterns and the way I've acted has been a mishmash of all these different things which are not even congruent with each other. They're often opposed, which is then pulling you in different directions, which means you don't then have a smooth flow of how you interact with the space of money. So I think that's really important. Look at the patterns that you exhibit and look at where they're coming from, where you're learning these. And I think the other big thing that I've taken from it is I went from scarce to what I would perceive and label to be as abundant. But what I realized now, and it's not always been like this, and it's not like this 100% of the time, but abundance can easily slip into negligence. And I think what I've been guilty of is not respecting the energy of money, not respecting that money is important, treating it as a throwaway, as like, yeah, it's a cycle, it'll come back to me, I'm not afraid to spend. I think you should be not afraid to spend very consciously, saying, I'm not afraid to spend because I believe fully in my heart that this is going to come back to me, which is different to just, fuck it, yeah, I'll buy it because that's who I think I am. You know, you can kind of play a character of being abundant, which is like sometimes being like negligent. That's the right word. You know, not respecting that everything's not going to just get better all the time. If you follow the crypto sphere at all, one of like the running memes and jokes is the idea of up only. So when, especially when Bitcoin takes off and everyone in the space just goes hyper about, oh, it's just going to go up and up, it's going to be worth $1 million, I'm just going to keep buying, I'm going to buy and hold. And the kind of meme, the joke is that people can't see the market cycle, and that yes, it will go up and then it will come down and then it will go up again and then it will come down again, and that's how markets operate. People have this false belief that they're just always going to win, and I've definitely operated like that. When I started making more money, I definitely thought it was just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, more and more and more. So I was acting abundantly, but I was also acting irresponsibly because I wasn't putting money away and saving and protecting the downside. Because I thought I'll always make more money, and I still believe that. And I spoke in the newsletter I published last week that being an entrepreneur is pretty much just being completely and just unobstructively positive all of the time. You have to always be glass half full, because you have to go out and meet the world after setback, knockback after knockback. Time after time, you try things, it doesn't work, you try things, it doesn't work. And you have to go out and be in full conviction that this time is the one. This is the one that's going to work. This is the one that's going to take off. That's how you have to operate every single day. So you have to be completely optimistic, even unrealistically so. And that's a trap. Because, yeah, you have to operate like that in business. Otherwise, you'll never do anything and you'll never be successful. The old saying, you know, most people fail 10 times before they find a successful business, etc., etc. But you also have to have the consciousness to recognize that market cycle. And that, yes, this business will go up, and then maybe it will go down, and then another business will go up even further, and maybe it will go down. And you need to be protecting those downsides. And that's something that I failed to do. I thought it was just going to be up only. So, like I said, I'm still working on this stuff. It's still something that I have. I have things in the back of my mind, or, you know, emotionally trapped in my body that I've not yet become conscious of. And in going through these experiences and then doing the reflection, doing the deep work, digging into it, doing the personal development, you find out this stuff, and then you can go through it. And it's my belief that as you uncover and realign, I guess is the right word, as you realign these things and these beliefs into a vertical that's going to serve you, then that's when you're ready for the next leap in progression. And at some point I'll probably hit a ceiling and probably get knocked back again, and I'll have to dig through the next layer of things which right now are beyond my reach. So this is my thesis, I guess, on the relationship towards money. It's my top 5 recommendations for books to work through on your relationship towards money, your understanding about money. And I just want to open this conversation. I'd love to hear what anyone else thinks. If you're watching this, just tell me if this resonates, and tell me if you you've taken anything from this, because I really do think, like, I don't normally make a big thing of, like, oh, you know, comment, tell me what you think. But this thing specifically, people don't talk about it. And I don't think that serves anybody. Certainly people in the UK. I think in the US it's different. It's a lot more willingly spoken about. But I want to make a change. I want it to be acceptable to talk about this stuff, because it's one of the most important things in life. And it's one of the things that holds people back more than anything else whatsoever. So let me know if this lands, if this has been helpful, if you see yourself in some of the patterns that I've mentioned. Let me know. And thank you for watching.